Hello, I'm David Debato, and you're watching the No Delusion Zone on Sunday, June 7th, 2026. And yesterday, June 6th, was the 81st anniversary or actually the 82nd anniversary of D-Day, known as D-Day here in the West, at least. It was at the time, largest amphibious assault in history. This was the day, June 6th, 1944, that the Western Allies threw their combined forces against the Western Wall of Nazi Germany, also known as Festung Europa, or Fortress Europe, which was conceived by Adolf Hitler and was a series of fortresses along the Atlantic coast. And the Western Allies composed of the United States, Canada, Great Britain, the Free French, the Free Poles, Italy, Czechs, Belgian, Dutch, and so forth, and many, many others contributed to this effort. And it was successful. Thankfully, it was successful. One of the reasons I believe that it was successful, as was World War II generally, by the Western Allies, was the soldiers knew, the military knew what they were fighting for. They knew they were fighting for democracy. Why? Because they had been taught that in school. At least in the United States, civics was a mandatory part of their curriculum. They were taught about how their government works or is supposed to work. They were taught about the various parts of the government, the branches of government, how a bill became a law, how officials were elected, about the law of the land, the U.S. Constitution, about the amendments, how an amendment was made. They took trips to Washington, D.C., to see the U.S. Congress in session, to see how the government worked. They could talk with and interview congressmen and women and senators and other elected officials and staff members. All of this was done for a long, long time leading up to World War II. So when some of these millions of these Americans went into the U.S. military, they knew what they were fighting for. Not all of them. They weren't all PhDs and professors, no, but they at least had a basic grasp of what their country was all about, what democracy was all about, what their constitutional republic really meant, and what they were fighting for, and what they were fighting against. And what they were fighting against was fascism. Fascism in the guise of Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini. They knew that, and they fought hard, and we won. Fast forward 82 years to today, which is, as I said, January or June 7th, 2026. Then, unbelievably, we're back fighting against fascism. Again, unfortunately, this time here on our shores in the United States of America. And the fascists are some of our own. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but they are what used to be known as the Republican Party. They are now just MAGA. They have forsaken any semblance of being called a real political party. They are sycophants. They are cult members. They are brainwashed hypocrites and traitors. All of them, all the Republicans, unless they take a stand in public and do something against this scourge that is MAGA, they're traitors. They are traitors. And so today, my podcast here on the No Delusion Zone is all about education, or the lack thereof, in the United States, which has brought us to this point. I'm going to make a couple of specific points here. For example, and I've said this on another podcast, the rate or the level of illiteracy, of stupidity, if you will, here in the United States is just staggering. I didn't even know some of these statistics until I did a podcast and wrote an article recently, but here it is. 20% of Americans are illiterate. That's 52 million adults. By the way, this is put out by the National Literacy Institute. It is a very nonpartisan, non-political think tank devoted strictly to literacy, to education in the United States. 54% of Americans can't read beyond the level of an 11-year-old. That's 41 million adults. An 11-year-old is approximately sixth grade, the sixth grade level. 57% of Americans have no education past high school. America ranks 36th in the world for literacy levels. Folks, which country in the world? Well, You can argue that China is now, but we're pretty rich. We make a lot of stuff. And most Americans are not yet suffering very badly financially. So we are a rich country who spends billions and billions of dollars on education, and we rank 36th in the world for literacy levels. And just in case people think that it is a racial thing where the black and brown and Asian folks are causing these statistics, no. White U.S.-born adults are the largest group with low literacy. So when you have that many people who cannot read above a 6th grade level, the level of an 11-year-old, how in God's name do you expect them to understand such concepts as what's presented in the U.S. Constitution or in bills that are presented to the Congress to be passed into a law? How could you expect them in any way, shape, or form to understand the political debates that happen every day? How do you expect them to understand what the politicians, the candidates for office, are telling them during election season when they're making all of these promises and telling folks what they will or won't do, what bills or policies they support or don't support? How do you expect an 11-year-old, the person functioning at an 11-year-old level, to understand what they're talking about? These people don't have any critical thinking skills whatsoever, or very little. And you expect them to be great, good, upstanding citizens in a democracy? I don't think so. So, folks, that's why we're at the level we're at, or in the problems that we're at. And again, I've written and spoken about this a lot, but it's getting worse. It's getting worse. Why? Because the Republican Party, MAGA, under Donald Trump, the head illiterate of them all, preaches lack of education. Donald Trump famously said a few years ago, I think it was during his first campaign season in 2016 or 2017, that he loves the poorly educated. All dictators, all fascists love the poorly educated. Why? Because they can lie to them with impunity, and the poorly educated will believe it. They can also feed into their darkest fears, and they will believe it. All dictators, all fascists throughout history have played this card, have played these games. They play to the lesser educated's fears. They lie to them. They tell them whatever they want to hear, knowing that it's a lie, and the poorly educated will believe it, hook, line, and sinker. They won't listen to the more difficult concepts. They won't listen to how they might have to sacrifice to make the country better. No, because number one, they won't understand the concept. Number two, they don't want to work any harder than they are. They think they're working too hard as it is and getting too little. So they're not going to work any harder than it is. They want some blowhard, some liar, some dictator to tell them that only he can make it better, because only he knows what the problem is. And it's not him and it's not them. It's the other. The other being, in this case, Democrats, liberals. And the only people who could solve it are him, MAGA, his cult, and what can I tell you? The other liars that surround him, all the non-liberals. Let me throw this up as well. This is just furthering what I just told you. On average, 79% of U.S. adults nationwide are literate in 2024, but that leaves 21% of adults in the U.S. that are illiterate in 2024. I already told you 54% of adults have a literacy rate below a 6th grade level. 20% of those folks are below a 5th grade level. I'm not going to go on because I talked to you already about this. Folks, you cannot have a democracy or a constitutional republic, which is a form of democracy, MAGA, by the way. You cannot have that with a population, a citizenry with such low levels of literacy. A democracy, a constitutional republic depends on an educated citizenry. You can't have one or the other, or both will perish. That's just a fact. And so, again, it's bringing me around to the point, specific point of today's podcast. And that is that because of the low education, the low literacy levels of the American electorate, which has allowed Donald Trump to be elected not once, but unbelievably twice, It's allowing him to do pretty much whatever he wants, which right now is controlling the entire government, all three branches, as well as a very large percentage of the American voting public. Even though his approval rates right now are in the 30 percentile, and everybody, or at least the media, is running around, oh, look how his approval rates are going down the toilet. Yes, they're less, but folks, he's got a good solid 1/3 of the American electorate. That's tens of millions of illiterate, moronic, stupid Americans who support him, even after all he's done, all he's said and done to ruin their economy, to ruin probably their lives, even though they're too stupid to know it. They still support him in very, very large numbers. And what I'm going to talk about right now, and the specifics about what I'm getting into, is the fact that not only has he ruined the White House now by destroying the East Wing and digging a big hole and leaving a gaping scar where that used to be, and God knows what it's going to eventually turn into. He's basically saying that he can do whatever he wants in the country, period, whether it's illegal or not. And that includes desecrating and destroying all of our monuments, our national symbols of democracy, symbols of who we are, where we've been, and where we aspire to go. And one of those could very possibly be this: the Statue of Liberty. Yes, there has been, well, not talk, but there has been some articles written, and in fact, a Department of Justice official who said, he was asked by a member of the media, a journalist, because Trump is basically, taking a wrecking ball to anything he wants to. Based on that, Mr. Department of Justice official, what about if Donald Trump wanted to bulldoze the Statue of Liberty? Could he do that? To which the Department of Justice official thought for about a second. Yes, he could. And there's nothing that the courts or anyone else could do about it. So, folks, the Department of Justice, that's who basically enforces the laws in this country, says that if Donald Trump, President Trump, wanted to destroy, to bulldoze the Statue of Liberty, he could do it, and nothing and no one could stop him. Listen to this brief video clip.
The Trump administration is now arguing in court that Donald Trump could bulldoze the Statue of Liberty and you can't do anything to stop him. Seriously. There's an argument happening right now over the legalities of Donald Trump's ballroom and the bulldozing of the White House East Wing. And Justice Department lawyers were asked straight up, if Trump were to just bulldoze the Statue of Liberty, would anyone have the ability to sue him and stop him? DOJ says no. No one can sue him. Theoretically, Congress can pass legislation to block the bulldozing of the Statue of Liberty, but you can't. No one can. Trump can just do it, even if it's an overt violation of the law. That is the position.
That's the position of the Department of Justice. And it goes on just a little while saying the same thing. So, folks, there you have it. Because of the mass stupidity in this country, the illiteracy, and the fact that the American electorate has voted Donald Trump into office as president, not once, not twice, and his core of support, his core MAGA supporters have allowed him, through cowardice, as well as their voting habits, to allow him to stack the Supreme Court, to terrify the U.S. Congress, which includes the House of Representatives and the Senate, to be a cult, to become a bootlicking cult that just rubber stamps everything he does. Because of that, he is able to do anything he wants. Look, the Supreme Court gave him unlimited immunity a couple of years ago, and don't let anybody tell you that it's not unlimited. If they tell you that, they do not know what they're talking about. He has unlimited criminal and civil immunity. He cannot be arrested before or after office, and he can't be sued for anything he does. This is a get out of jail free card to do anything, to destroy the United States of America, which he is rapidly doing. And it all comes down to education, folks. When you've got a stupid, illiterate, uninformed citizenry, you cannot have a successful democracy, or, as MAGA likes to say, a constitutional republic, which is in fact a form of democracy. You can't have it both ways. One or both are doomed. And that's all I've got to say for today. And again, it's Sunday, June 7th, 2026. Please, if you like what you hear, I would hope that you would hit the like button and subscribe to here, the No Delusion Zone. Need all your support, obviously, because every day I see this. Yeah, WTF. And you know what that stands for. Trump doesn't disappoint me on coming up with one of these every single day. You know, we've got a Department of Defense, which, by the way, Congress just allowed this individual right here to name officially, legally, the Department of War. Department of War. You know, that's what all drunks like, don't they? Department of War, especially those that carry the Cross of Malta, the medieval knights. You know, the Christian nationalists, they like Department of War. They like good old brawls. They're warriors. You know, they're fighting against everybody who's not a white Northern European Christian. You know, they like to do this too, carry one of these just before they storm the U.S. Capitol. These Christian nationalists, boy, are they Christians, huh? Real Christians listening to and obeying the word of Jesus. Well, if you don't buy any of that, buy me a coffee. You bet. Go to buymeacoffee.com. Buy me a coffee. Become a supporter. You can also put your phone up right now to the screen, your Android or your iPhone, or go to buymeacoffee.com/no delusion zone. Put your phone up there. You could become a supporter. You could become a monthly supporter or just buy me a bunch of coffees. I can surely use it. I'm also on Patreon, and let me see, where's my Patreon? I think my Patreon is right. No, it's not there, but this is Patreon. You can become a member at my Patreon, thereby becoming a member. $5 a month, 7-day free trial, gold level at $20 a month. You could go to my Substack and buy one of these and do as I do every morning and greet the day with a cup that says basically, new dictator, same old shit. Believe me, it'll make you feel better, especially when you fill it up with some of this No Delusion Zone real Colombian coffee. There's my Patreon, No Delusion Zone right there. So, folks, need your support. So please become a subscriber and then go to my Patreon, go to my Substack as well, and become a subscriber there and become a monthly supporter on Buy Me a Coffee and Patreon. Until then, you all, take care, stay safe, and if all possible, stay sane.